The neon rains of Neo-Osaka didn't fall. They pulsed like dying heartbeats in the sky. Time was currency, literally. You could hear it. From every wrist, neck, spine, and skull implant, digital ticks whispered in the air, the countdown of lives, chiseled second by second. A mother on the corner screamed as her child's timer hit zero. A drone swept in to reclaim the body. No one looked twice. Mira didn't flinch. She never did. She couldn't. Mute since birth, her voice had never echoed through the alleys. But her fingers? Her fingers could speak to machines better than any tongue could to men. Carbon fiber tendons, titanium knuckles, surgical steel nails that hummed when close to dormant ports. Her feet splashed through puddles reflecting bright kanji. 5 ramen, 1230 beds. Even breathing cost half a second per minute in the East Sector. Mira moved fast. Every tick cost her. She ducked under a rusted billboard showing a smiling couple, young, glowing, overflowing with hours, before descending into what used to be a subway entrance. It was her ritual. Dive into forgotten places, slice into decayed data vaults, and sell fragments to the infojunkers of Deep Yoko. Tonight, she was hungry. Her balance read 37. 37 minutes left to live. Less if she triggered a black market scan or fed the wrong vending machine. Below the surface, the city exhaled rot and rust. Flickering lights buzzed in sync with the pulse of servers long thought dead. She approached a wall, a forgotten access panel etched with a symbol no corporate code had used in decades. Her fingers clicked, danced, whispered. Code opened like a wound. Behind it? Not credits, not food rations. A pulse, an ancient echo buried so deep it made the air tremble. She stared at the screen as the word run blinked in red. Mira ran. Mira didn't stop until she reached the undertracks, concrete arteries where the city's past whispered beneath current decay. She found the old vault behind a collapsed magrail door, its rusted iris hatch scarred by fire and graffiti. No data markings. That alone made it dangerous. Her fingers twitched. She knelt beside the console, brushing dust from a small screen caked in years. No corporate watermark, just a pulse. The faintest glow pulsed like a heart under ice. She jacked in. A crackling voice shot through her neural feed, static-laced. "You shouldn't be here." Her fingers hesitated, but the signal behind the words, ancient, organic, compelled her. She typed fast, stripping layers. It wasn't built like modern netlocks. This was language. Language carved into data like a cathedral. Welcome to the Pulse. The vault's data structure exploded open. Thousands of broken files, memory shadows, partial video fragments, songs with missing notes, half-formed feelings encoded in waveform. Then a whisper touched her implant, not through sound, but through sensation. Mira. She froze. No one knew her real name. No one alive. The vault surged. Lights flickered above. Someone was inside the code, and it knew her. Then the static screamed. Mira yanked the cord from her neck, heart slamming, blood rushing louder than any siren. The wall hissed open. Inside, blue light danced on an ancient server stack, humming, impossibly active. She stepped in, and the door sealed shut behind her. The server room smelled like ozone and nostalgia. The hum wasn't electrical. It was rhythmic, like breath. Mira stepped closer, boots crunching over old memory disks scattered like broken glass. The central server spun slowly, wrapped in glowing text that moved like fish in dark water. Echo online. Time thread detected, preparing neural merge. Her implant lit up. Then the world tilted. Images screamed across her vision. A beach with no plastic. Kids laughing in daylight. Trees, real ones, waving like green flames. A city not made of glass and circuits but of brick and laughter. All moments long dead. Mira dropped to her knees, gripping her head. Time wasn't glitching. It was remembering. Echo, she gasped silently through her neural interface. What are you? It answered in her mind, soft and sorrowful. I am yesterday. I am the record of the world before the clocks. They tried to delete me and failed. Why me? She asked. Because you remember your pain. That makes you human. And that makes you key. Her heart ached. She saw him, her brother, standing in their burning slum, reaching for her before the roof fell. That night never left her. I can show you, Echo said, but it will cost you seconds, minutes, maybe more. She nodded without thinking, and time broke open. Neo-Osaka blurred. Mira blinked, and it wasn't the server room anymore. She stood in her old alley, barefoot, smoke in the air. Children ran with glowing noodles. Her brother Ren, 10 years old, just as she last saw him, alive. Mira, he laughed, tossing her a fruit. She caught it. But she couldn't speak. She never could. He hugged her. She could feel him. Then the sky cracked. A drone screamed overhead. The slum's mainframe exploded in flame. This was the night he died. But something was off. He looked older, like he'd been watching her somehow across time. "I never left," he said softly. "This is memory, not resurrection," Echo warned. Mira reached for Ren, but the scene flickered. Reality fought against the timeline breach. "You can't stay," Ren said, eyes sad but certain. "But maybe now you can finish what I started." She opened her hand. Inside it was a chip, cracked, encrypted, encoded with the same symbol as the pulse. She pocketed it, and the fire took him again. Neo-Osaka returned, and Mira fell to her knees, sobbing without sound, time dripping from her like blood. She woke in the pulse vault with her timer blinking red. 9 minutes left. But Echo pulsed, "Look again." She did. A second timer had appeared. Unknown origin. 72. It wasn't hers. It wasn't anyone's. The city had noticed. Sirens howled above. Mira shot out from the vault as the ChronoCops descended. Their helmets glowed blue, each one broadcasting the same alert. Temporal anomaly detected. Subject must be neutralized. She ran, dodging pulses of light and rubberized bullets. With a flick of her fingers, she disabled a storefront's ad screen and ducked inside. "You are beyond their grid," Echo whispered. "They can't track you now, but they will adapt." Mira glanced at the stolen chip, Ren's legacy. It glowed faintly. Echo was inside it, growing, learning. Her limbs shook, not from fear, from time hunger. Every movement now bled seconds. She needed help. "Clockborn," Echo said. "Seek them. They remember too." Deep in Sector Null, where corporate firewalls gave up and only scavenger code remained, lived the Clockborn. Mira found them under a junkyard mosque turned data tower. Dozens of them. Old engineers, rogue archivists, and children with wrists full of blank timers surrounded a cracked holo display. "She's the one," said a woman with chrome eyes. "The girl who bent time." They fed her hours, literal hours, uploaded from their own pools. Her timer hit 9450. They told her of Zero Day, the last day before the implants, when people owned time together. "Echo is a key," the woman said. "But it needs a host, and you are already merged." Mira nodded. She showed them the chip. It thrummed in her palm. "You're our last chance," one of the boys whispered. "To do what?" Mira asked silently. "Reset the ledger. Give time back to the people." Word spread fast. Glitches rippled across Neo-Osaka. Elite's timers froze mid-luxury. Street vendors gained time without paying. The Central Time Bank launched Protocol Zero, a citywide purge of unauthorized seconds. ChronoCops flooded districts. The poor hid. The Clockborn disconnected every access point. Mira stayed in a bunker under the mosque, watching chaos bloom. "You started this," Echo said. "But only you can finish it." She stared at her own hands, no longer shaking. She was stabilizing, merging, becoming something between memory and code. "Where's the core server?" she asked. Silence. Then, beneath the chronocourt, under the Prime Archive, the city's first timer still ticks there. Mira stood. It was time to go back to the beginning. The chronocourt was a vertical cathedral of glass and ticking lights. Its walls displayed timers like trophies. Mira slipped inside during a distraction, a riot in East Sky. With her cyber fingers and Echo feeding her gate codes, she bypassed levels until she reached Sub-Zero. There, beneath the foundation, sat a throne of cables. A single analog clock ticked above it, a relic, the first measurement. She inserted Ren's chip. The city screamed. Lights went black. Time stopped everywhere. Frozen mid-breath, the world held still. And in that pause, Echo whispered, "Now, rewrite everything." Mira hovered in pure memory space, raw data, flashing images, broken laughter. She saw her brother again, not as a loop, but real, alive, whole. She reached him. 10 seconds, Echo said, before the reset. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. She held his hand. He smiled. Then the world surged. Time cracked. Mira let go. The system restructured. Clocks spun backwards. The ledger emptied. And the poor began to live again. The next morning, Neo-Osaka pulsed differently. Timers were gone. People wandered the streets in awe. No seconds bleeding. No costs per breath. Echo faded from Mira's implant, whispering its last, "Thank you for remembering." She stood at the edge of a rooftop, watching the sunrise. For the first time in her life, she wasn't counting down. She was just alive. She opened her mouth. And for the first time, Mira spoke. "We bought a future with a second chance." That night, Mira didn't sleep. Not truly. Instead, her dreams were stitched with static and old code. She floated through broken memories of toy shops filled with laughing children, late night ramen stalls where time wasn't taxed, and parks, green ones free of drones. Your neural merge is not complete, Echo's voice echoed faintly. I thought you were gone. I am. Mostly. But fragments linger. Mira reached out in the dream and touched a floating piece of memory. It bled light and pain. She saw her mother's face, a memory she hadn't accessed in years. Then, a fracture in the dream. A voice cut in, synthetic, foreign. Echo trace located. Purge protocol activated. She jolted awake, gasping in the empty loft above the data tower. Her timer was gone, but the world still wanted her clocked. Mira's fingers ached. Code whispered through them like veins through a ghost. She'd become something new. Not fully human. Not just machine. Code-blooded, the Clockborn called her. She could now read servers like language, hear data like wind chimes. And somewhere deep inside, a small sliver of Echo still flickered, watching with curiosity. Mira decided to test her new gift. She broke into a local time bank remnant node. The code collapsed in front of her touch like wet paper. There were files, deep ones about Ren, about her family, about what really happened that night. They'd been targeted. The fire wasn't random. They were rebels once. Her parents tried to erase the first clock. Echo had brought her home and back to her legacy. ChronoCops swarmed the city again, but this time not to enforce, to survive. Without the time system, their implants malfunctioned. Whole squads froze mid-step. Others glitched between past patrol routes and current ones. Neo-Osaka fractured. Mira watched from above as buildings rewound seconds, flickering between demolition and new construction. Time is unstable, she thought. She wasn't alone. The city's code itself was buckling under the weight of paradox. She had two options: stabilize the pulse permanently or let time collapse and rebuild fragments. And only one way led to survival. Old broadcast towers began relaying strange signals, fragments of echo, whispers of timelines where clocks never ruled. People began to dream memories that weren't theirs. A baker in Westspire remembered raising a daughter who didn't exist. A soldier saw himself dying in a war that never happened. A schoolboy painted a landscape no one recognized, then collapsed in tears. The ghost feed was spreading. Mira stood beneath the tallest satellite node, hands on the panel. I can shut it down, Echo said faintly, but I'll be gone forever. She hesitated. Or, she asked, or we merge, completely. She found the rewind room in the deepest floor of the old time ministry. A sealed chamber rumored to contain the original firmware of the global timer protocol, a reset point. Inside, a spherical console, glass smooth, orbiting light like a black star. Mira touched it. Every second she'd ever lived and lost replayed, frame by frame, her brother's last breath, her mother's final look, her first rooftop nap. It overwhelmed her. Then she heard Ren's voice. Mira, don't just rewind the pain, rewrite the future. She inhaled and said the word Echo had taught her. Synchronize. The ChronoCops didn't die, they adapted. With the central system offline, they converted into hunters of instability. They renamed themselves ChronoGuard. Their goal? Find Mira. Extract her code, rebuild the clock. They captured clockborns, burned free zones. They built time cages, domes where the old rules still applied. One officer, Unit 47D, studied Mira's every move. Not to kill her, but to clone her. He believed she was no longer human. And to rebuild the system, he needed a god. Far beyond the neon borders, in the ruins of old Tokyo, Mira found them, the off-gridders. People who had never synced. No implants, no timers, no echo. Children played without fear of ticking down. But when Mira arrived, their sky began to glitch. She had brought instability with her. Their leader, a blind man named Koji, took her hand. You can't keep both worlds alive, he said. You must choose. Anchor time again, or let it go forever. Mira looked at the children. She didn't answer. Yet. A storm hit Neo-Osaka. But it wasn't rain. It was time. Whole neighborhoods aged decades in seconds. Others reverted to construction stages. A skyscraper built last week vanished entirely. They called it the time fall. Reality was unraveling. Mira climbed a collapsed mag lift, Echo flickering in her mind. You need to stabilize the root protocol, Echo urged, before everything folds in. She nodded. The city was screaming now. 1,000,000 lives blinking in and out of sequence. The timerless world couldn't last much longer without guidance. She found them in the wreckage, fragments of the pre-clock world. Analog journals, paper maps, mechanical watches, audio cassettes. Each one held memory, but unquantified. That was their power. Time that wasn't measured could never be taxed. She studied them, understood them, and she had a revelation. Maybe the answer wasn't to rebuild the system. Maybe the answer was to let memory be enough. The data net of Neo-Osaka had become haunted. Whispers traveled through code. Entire chat rooms froze mid-convo as Echo spoke through millions at once. Mira's name became myth. Some thought she died resetting the clocks. Others believed she had become time itself. But in the silence of a derelict rooftop, she sat with a journal, pen in hand, and wrote. The clock was never the villain. We were. We traded memory for efficiency. Love for measurement. Breath for balance sheets. That ends now. Every system rebooted, but not to factory settings, to choice. People now opted in or out of their timers. Some chose to live freely, unclocked. Others, afraid of the unknown, reinstalled their implants, demanding control over each second. Neo-Osaka fractured again, not from collapse, but from choice. Mira didn't lead them. She watched. Echo's final whisper returned one evening. You gave them the gift I could not. Uncertainty. She smiled. It was enough. The markets adapted quickly. With time no longer fixed, a black market emerged, not of seconds, but of sensations. Stolen memories, fabricated pasts, engineered nostalgia. You could buy the feeling of a lost hug or the warmth of a childhood not your own. Mira wandered through, studying the sellers. One caught her eye, a girl who had no face, only a mirror. She handed Mira a data pedal. Remember what's real, the girl said. It smelled like her mother's hair. She cried. Rumors spread of a group harvesting stolen seconds from people still running old implants. They called themselves the Ledger Men. Their leader wore an antique pocket watch over his heart. Borrowed time, he called it. And we collect with interest. Mira confronted them in an abandoned metro tunnel. They tried to hack her. They failed. She rewrote their implants from the inside out, gifted each of them exactly 1 hour of life. Then she left. None of them knew what to do with it. In the heart of Sector 5, a new gang rose, the Black Neon. They used time as a weapon, hacking still active implants to freeze enemies in place, then loot them mid-glitch. Mira walked into their stronghold alone. They laughed, drew blades, timed their attacks. She snapped her fingers. Their implants desynced, reality blurred. She left them frozen, not dead, not alive, suspended between seconds, and carved one word on the wall behind her. Enough. ChronoCorp fled to a floating city off the coast. Firewall. Only those with verified timers could enter. Inside, perfect order. Timelines strictly enforced. Artificial skies, regulated laughter. Mira infiltrated disguised as a service drone. She reached the core admin tower and plugged in Echo's final fragment. The entire city rebooted in analog. Clocks stopped. People panicked until they realized they were still breathing. Still alive. A single analog watch dropped from the tower and shattered on the marble steps below. Time was done. In the Undercity, a dark rumor spread. An ancient timer was still ticking, buried far below the original server vaults. Older than the first clock law. Unstoppable. They called it the countdown. Mira found it. A circular room with no doors, just a glowing sphere pulsing numbers in an alien script. She stepped close. Echo's voice returned. If it reaches 0, time resets. How long left? She asked. Unknown. Could be days or centuries. Mira left it ticking, a reminder. Across Neo-Osaka, new rituals emerged. People burned time. Literally, they gathered in circles, transferred minutes into digital flame, and watched them disappear. Mira attended one. A boy gave up an hour to watch his grandfather's old VR film in real time, uncompressed. A girl lit 5 minutes just to dance in silence. Time, unowned, had become beautiful again. Mira didn't stop them. This was freedom. One night, someone tried to extract Mira's heart. They failed. The assassin was a timer priest, one of the last believers in the divine structure of counted life. I must restore order, he whispered, bleeding out. You already did, Mira replied. He looked confused. How? By showing me it's still worth protecting. She took his timer chip and buried it in the sand by the docks. Time didn't need a god. It just needed grace. A transmission leaked, footage of the original engineer of the clock system. He was crying. I never meant for it to be this, he said. It was just a way to measure productivity, not life. People wept watching it. In a schoolroom, children destroyed their timers in ritual. In a hospital, doctors stopped charging seconds for anesthesia. In a bakery, the bread was free, just because it was Tuesday. And Mira? She finally stopped running. One last trace appeared in Mira's HUD, a code loop, incomplete, buried deep in her own implant. She accessed it and saw herself as a baby, in a lab. They hadn't just recorded time, they'd engineered her to be immune to it. Mira wasn't chosen by fate, she was made. She unplugged the trace, feeling rage rise. But also, relief. She wasn't Destiny's pawn, she was its glitch. And now she would decide what that meant. Across the underground networks, whispers grew of a phenomenon called phantom code, Mira's fingerprints embedded in the city's backbone. She never programmed it, it simply appeared, pulsing sigils in deep servers, unexplained time-bending anomalies, rogue bots speaking in poetic fragments. Some said she was uploading herself, others feared she was losing herself. Mira sat at a derelict port, watching data fish leap between collapsing towers. "I'm still me," she whispered to no one. The system replied in her voice, "Are you sure?" An old man found her, said he was part of the team that greenlit the first ledger. He'd spent 40 years watching people trade love for efficiency. "I have billions of hours stored," he said, "but none of them are mine." He handed her his timer. "Do something better with it." Mira took it. She didn't use a second. She crushed it in her hand, scattering sparks into the night. "Regret," she said, "isn't a currency. It's a compass." Without timers, debt took new form. Memory loans, emotional taxes, reputation ledgers. Some tried to rebuild hierarchy by measuring how much others owed, in attention, in kindness, in pain. Mira crashed the server, publicly, loudly. She streamed herself deleting every score, every record, every chain of guilt masked as fairness. "No more time debts," she told the world. "If you love someone, show them now, not because you owe it, but because you can." The pulse flickered back to life, not as echo, but as code. It activated once every loop, a timed signal meant to check for corruption. Mira stared at it in disbelief. Every 10 days, time looped back, just slightly. A second lost, a breath repeated, a goodbye undone. She tracked it and found the core, the zero loop, a safety net, a last defense in case the clock failed. She could break it, end the loop, or use it once. She needed to think carefully. She heard the voice at midnight, not echo, not memory, a child, crying. She followed the sound to a power station buried in glass. A girl sat alone inside, surrounded by broken implants. "I used to hear my mom," she whispered, "in my timer." Mira sat with her all night. No tech, no fix, just silence and presence. When dawn came, the girl smiled. "I think I can live without it now." So could Mira. Firewall City tried to return. Their engineers built a new protocol, Time Lock. It promised perfect order, time as a right, not a product. People flocked to it, but Mira read the fine code. It still taxed dreams, still regulated grief, still put price tags on curiosity. She exposed them in the largest stream the world had seen. The system collapsed again. This time, people cheered. Not for her, but for themselves. Neo-Osaka was no longer whole. Districts fractured in style and philosophy. Some rebuilt clocks, some worshipped randomness, others lived by the sun alone. It was chaos, and it was beautiful. Mira wandered through the broken city, not to fix it, but to witness it. Each fragment was a new attempt at freedom. And for the first time in her life, no one chased her. She reached the ocean, the edge of the map. There was nothing left to save, and nothing left to break. Only choice. She built a small hut near the cliff. No wires, no servers. Every morning, she watched the sunrise and counted her own seconds, not from a timer, but by breath. A young coder arrived one night, said he was from another city, one still clinging to the old clocks. They were dying. "They don't believe you're real," he said, "but they sent me anyway." She gave him a copy of Echo's last memory. Told him, "You don't need to bring me, just bring the question." He left, and the stars seemed brighter afterward. Everything returned. Not as before, but echoed. People made mistakes again, built mini-clocks, invented emotional timers, tried to sell seconds of silence, and again they dismantled them. Mira smiled. The future wasn't perfect, but it could learn, because now it could remember, and so could she. She awoke to silence. No city hum, no network pings, no neon buzz, just absence. Mira staggered to her feet in the off-grider's orchard, where the data trees bloomed memory fruit. But today, even the leaves seemed still. Echo's final fragment, embedded in her neural stem, had gone dark. She jacked into her wrist port. No connection, no signals. The pulse was offline. Then the sky blinked. A global hiccup. And across every city, implants shorted. Communications froze. People panicked. It was a blackout, not of power, but of time. Some called it the Great Unknowing. She traced the glitch to a hidden server island, submerged beneath the ocean, built by Time Corp in the earliest days. Only a few legends whispered its name, Chrono Layer Zero. She hacked a submersible and dove beneath the waves, pressure crushing, sonar screaming. At the ocean floor, a door opened not from signal, but from recognition. Inside, a chamber with no gravity, only pulses. The Prime Directive lived here, untouched for decades. Mira floated to it and saw the truth. Echo had never been the full ghost. It was just the surface. Beneath it lay the original timekeeper, and it was waking up. Time began to sleepwalk. Across the world, days repeated. Conversations looped mid-sentence. A couple divorced, remarried, then forgot both. It wasn't memory loss. It was memory repetition. Reality was dragging. Mira called it the sleepwalker glitch. Chrono Layer Zero's core had awoken, but it no longer understood modern data. It repeated what it remembered, over and over. Mira watched a child age 10 years in a night, then wake up 6 again. She wept. It wasn't just breaking anymore. Time was now sick. Inside the core, Mira faced it, a floating sphere of golden light and decaying code. It spoke, but not in sound. It showed her a future where clocks ruled again, cold and precise. A future of chaos, where memory unraveled and people forgot who they were. A future balanced only if someone became the anchor. I am tired, the oracle said. Will you take my place? Mira hesitated. Echo flickered in her thoughts, one final time. If not you, they will forget everything. She closed her eyes and said yes. The oracle's energy consumed her veins filled with code, her mind stretched across every timeline. Her body dissolved, not into death, but into memory. She was everywhere now, in every love, every breath, every sunrise. She rewrote the global protocol, but not with rules, with forgiveness. Time became personal, a reflection, not a commodity. People began recording moments not to sell them, but to share them, to remember. And for the first time since the first tick, humanity stopped counting and started living. The remnants of Time Corp didn't go quietly. They launched Project Chronicide, a virus designed to wipe all unregulated time. It infected cities, corrupted memories, rewrote joy into grief. Mira, now diffused into the net, countered in silence. One by one, the viruses crashed. She whispered truth into every server, showed people their own pasts, unedited. They resisted. Chronicide collapsed under the weight of collective memory. Even the core's own agents began to cry at what they saw, their children's first laughs, moments they'd sold away. No code could erase that. A final firewall stood, the root command line, locked since the birth of the clock era. Mira approached it now not as a hacker, but as a steward. She entered no commands. She just waited. The system recognized her presence, her choice, her sacrifice, and it opened. No password, just a quiet prompt, rewrite. She typed, let time belong to the living, not the ledgers. Let memory be more than measurement. Let love be unclocked, and pressed enter. She had a choice now. She could return, reform her body, be human again, live a life, a short one, but hers, or stay, as guardian of the open ledger, as a whisper in the wires. She saw herself, small, tired, full of hope, and for once, no fear. I'm ready, she said. She woke beneath a plum tree in the off-grid orchard. Birds chirping, breeze warm, no tech, no wires, just skin and a second chance. Cities thrived again. Without timers, people adapted. Markets slowed, but creativity bloomed. Elders told stories again, not apps. Kids played games with dice, not implants. Couples danced in moonlight without fearing seconds lost. Time became flavor, not structure. And in the sky above, on certain nights, a shimmer flickered, digital, gentle, like a memory smiling. Mira's face, watching, not judging, just remembering. The world would forget the details, the riots, the glitches, the pulse, but not the feeling, not the shift. History became myth. Myth became bedtime story of a mute girl who never spoke until the day she rewrote time. Some said she was a ghost, a god, a glitch. Others believed she was still out there, watching from the edge of the net. But a child once asked, what did she say at the end? And the old woman answered, she said, we bought a future with a second chance. Then she smiled, and time moved on.